Alright, so, man, I was not expecting to do a buff breakdown today. This kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, maybe someone could have anticipated something like this, but yeah, we got the pre-campaign for the upcoming collab events, but with it, most importantly, we got not one, not two, three, four, we got 5 buffs. That's crazy. It's like one of the biggest buff waves I've ever seen. In fact, it might be the biggest buff if we're not counting like strengthening campaigns that happen like in a time gate. This is kind of crazy. And first of all, I'm happy to report all of these buffs are good. Now, not every single one of them will be like a massive game changer, but honestly, some are really good. So yeah, we have a lot of stuff to talk about today, huh? So I guess we'll do them in order. I'll probably leave, you know, if you're watching this later on YouTube as well, I'll probably include timestamps as well. You can see all the different buffs in case you only care about some of them. And I also have like my tier list ready and whatnot in case I want to move things around, which, spoiler, I will. So yeah, I guess we'll start. Now, first of all, this is honestly probably maybe not the best buff, but maybe the most meaningful buff to the servant. So they buffed Altera's second skill again, so she's now the 3rd servant to receive a second buff to the same skill, them being Emiya and Tesla before her. This seems to be something they want to keep doing more nowadays. So let us take a look at what we have now. So if we, again, this is Altera's page on the wiki. We look at the second skill. It used to be very underwhelming. They did buff it once, ages ago. Even this buff is very old. Still wasn't great, to be honest. Still, in my opinion, pretty weak. But now, after the second buff, what do we got? Now, the old stuff, debuff rest for 3 turns. Against only offensive buffs, keep in mind, so not amazing. The A heal and this absorb for 1 turn, they're the same. Even the cooldown is the same. Nothing was done with the old effects, but now she gets 30% crit damage for 3 turns. Not too shabby, and most importantly, there it is. Up to a 30% battery. This is basically what she needed the most. In my opinion, Altera was like top 5 weakest SSRs in the game, as much as it pains me to say that. But with this, she could finally at least do Buster farming properly. She was not able to do it before this, sadly. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think her kit is still otherwise amazing. Even the MP, even with the buff, is still basic as hell. But the numbers speak for themselves, and again, with this, she is indeed able to do what she was always destined to do, be among the greats, at least for the farming side. Now, I can illustrate this. We have the good old looping damage form again, and again, if you want to see this, this is now updated. It should be the same link as in the tier list. I'll probably link this again in this video as well if people are interested. So, as you can see, she obviously still needs the good old double witch Oberon system with the 30% battery, but her numbers are still pretty good. Like, those are some good-ass numbers, actually. Those are definitely on the high end for Buster farming. So, yes, the requirements are still not the easiest, obviously, because you do need the full-on plug and everything. But at least the CE choice is easy. And man, this, yeah. Now, sadly, the Saber tier list is not saved on my browser anymore for whatever reason. It is, the other lists are saved, you'll see them soon. But I did do the placements from the Saber tier list from this year. At least I placed her peers, basically. So this is all the SSR AoE Buster Sabers. Now, this is what the list looked like for them when I was complete with it. But yeah, as you can see, Altera was all the way down here at C+, a very sad rating for an actual SSR servant. But now, we're definitely talking at least an A. But honestly, I might even be willing to place her here. The numbers speak for themselves. Like, this is one of the biggest jumps in the I've ever seen when it comes to just from one buff. The only reason why it is like this to begin with is because it's truly a game changer for her. An absolute game changer. She didn't have a great place in the game before this. She was kind of awkward for challenge quests. Definitely not an amazing farmer either. But now, again, you need me to show them again? Like, look at these numbers. The only reason why she doesn't go to the top is because the requirements are still way steeper than for archery, for example, and Ibuki still has a much greater presence in challenge quests. But I feel like I can justify placing her an A+, because I do feel like, at least for farming, she would do a better job than Mordred and Arthur, who might still do a slightly better job at CQ, if not equal-ish, but hey, she still does farming quite a bit better. So I feel like this is very much fair. Now, again, it is a huge jump. It's full-on 2 entire tiers, so some people might be shocked, and a lot of people might be saying, you're over your head, that's too much. But I truly think she deserves this now. So hey, you know, some people will be like, oh, they give out batteries all the time, like whatever, it's boring. But hey, I mean, I would obviously like to see some variety as well, but you know, it's exactly what she kind of needed, so you know, it is what it is. So Altera, you finally are very relevant again. How about that? Good on you. Good Civ, I suppose. Now, we're moving on to the second buff, because, man, again, this is only the second one of 5. And this is, in terms of the buffs themselves, this is the biggest one. And it's an insane buff. It might, again, unlike Altera, it's not necessarily game-changing, but the buff itself is insane. Now, yes, you're seeing that correctly. That is Tamamo Summer right there. And now, okay, first of all, it's insanely rare to see them buff Summer Servants to begin with, let alone give them big buffs. Usually the buffs they do get are minor ones, but nice. But man, this is far from minor. This is major stuff right here. Okay, so everyone knows Tamamo Lancer's third skill, right? In fact, we should open it right here. It was never amazing nor bad. It was just okay. Like, for one turn, you get a bunch of effects that kind of really worked with her playstyle as well on a 6-turn cooldown. It did come with the hefty demerit of, you know, self-stun after your turn. You were done with your turn, though. But while there were obviously ways to combat this as well, it was still kind of annoying because you had to deal with it. Otherwise, it could mess you up in future turns. Not always was the stun bad, though, but a lot of the times it could be very bad. But now with the buff, like, are you ready for this? Because this is one of the craziest buffs I've seen for just one skill. So, a lot of this stuff remains the same. The MP gen is the same. The debuff rest is the same. Healing up is the same. And the influence is the same. But now, the crit damage is 3 turns instead of 1 turn on 50%. The crit star generation is 50% for 3 turns instead of 1 turns. She gets a 30% battery, and they also removed the demerit of the delayed stun. Like, oh my god. When I saw this buff, I had to double take. Because I was like, there's no way they buffed this skill that much. Like, this has to have been a mistake, right? But they did. This skill now has to be like one of the best skills in the entire game. Probably top 3 easily. Like, on a 6-turn cooldown, this skill is absolutely ridiculous now. I can't even emphasize how stupid this buff is, in a good way, obviously. But, like, it's ridiculous. The difference is night and day. Now, we're gonna talk about the placement, of course, in the tier list. Now, she, in my list, well, you know what, this is actually funny because this is outdated as well, because, you know, there was the comment about my 92 one, and especially I should mention, now that I did finish her Grail, obviously this makes me even happier. Not that I did it for gameplay reasons anyway, but, you know, it's nice that they gave her more love. But, yeah, she was staying at B+, mostly because, compared to some of her peers, she was kind of a noodle. I'm not gonna lie, still, the MP, the weakest part of her kit, right? But her numbers are really good. And now with the uptime on the crit as well is better, and you know, she doesn't have annoying demerit anymore, and a battery for an even better uptime, which was always good on the MP. It's still a meaningful buff for sure. Definitely. We're looking at least an A. I might be even willing to put an A+, honestly. She's still not among like Enkidu tier, because the MP is still kind of a noodle, but she could honestly very well be here. She could be. That skill is broken. Like, at least now, because I love the fact that they made the crit damage 3 turns, right? Because even though her MP might not be the hardest hitting ever, she actually has really good crit presence now too. And keep in mind, her own star gen, especially now that that is 3 turns as well, is actually very solid. Her quicks have a lot of hits in them as well, including the busters. So, couple that with the supporter too, you're looking at a very solid crit DPS at least. So this is, in a way, it is kind of game changing for her, because it gives her a much better option for DPS. I mean, she still spams her MP pretty well, and that's nice, but now the crits are honestly even a bigger focus than the MP spam, if anything. So yeah, I would honestly place her above Shisho and Bryn now, to be honest. And again, people might disagree, and that's fair. I might be jumping the gun here, but it just looks amazing on paper, so yeah. Great buff. Like, the buff itself is like a 10 out of 10 buff. Even if it's not like the biggest game changer ever. This buff alone is insanely massive. One of the biggest changes a skill has ever seen. Alright, the third one. Now we relax a little bit, because some of these next buffs, they're pretty minor. But again, like I said at the start, all of them are good at least. They all make sense, even if they are a bit basic. So now we're looking at, yes, another summer unit. This time, another summer one as well. Summer and Anne and Mary, basically. The archer variant. They got a skill buff as well. So let's just immediately look what happens. The Summer Yuri Pirates, they have never really seen a buff, which makes sense because they don't really buff Summer Servants to begin with. But now, the second skill used to be a Star Bomb with some Absorb for 1 turn and 6 turn cooldown. If you saw my review of them during the tier list, I definitely said this is just an weak skill nowadays. But now, it's still the old effects remain, right? They're exactly the same, even cooldown included. But now it comes with a 30% self battery as well. Like, there it is, you insert, you know, oh, they only do batteries, and yeah, you know, you're not completely off, but hey, it works. It's a nice buff. Is it a game changer? No. Is it nice? Yes. They still have some other issues, obviously, but you know, a buff is a buff. This one is probably the least impactful of all 5 of these, though, in my opinion. Now, let's go to the Archer tier list. Now, I did place them at D+, which is a bit harsh. Yes, in fact, you know, a certain other one is even harsher, and we'll see her in a second as well. But I think with this, they are at least C, if not even C+. It's not a huge buff, though, honestly. But it's not a D. They're not D+ anymore. Maybe a C, though. I kind of want to just put them in C, to be honest. I'm maybe not still feeling this. It's hard to say. Would I give them a full tier above the last placement just because of a 30% battery? Probably not. Not in their case. Because they're not like a farmer like our Altera is. So I'll just leave them at C for now. Like, it's a good buff, but it's not like it's not gonna immediately make them like really good or anything like that. You still obviously have better options, most likely. But hey, good buff is good. Now, there she is, as you just saw her. Yes, indeed, a third summer unit got buffed in the same batch, and it's Summer Helena, who I definitely agree needed this buff. She really needed this. She was probably, arguably, the weakest of all summer units ever released, including Welfare's, to be honest. This was so much needed. Everyone knew that she was just a noodle, right? Like, she was like if you looked at the definition of noodle in an FGO dictionary, her picture was there. So, it's an MP buff, thank God. This is exactly what she needed. Sure, a skill buff would have been cool as well, because the second skill, from what I remember, is the second one. It kind of sucks, but hey, this was the most needed one. So, let's take a look what happens to Helena Archer, the summer variant. So obviously it comes with the standard damage upgrade, right? The OC remains the same, but it did get a third addition, so now, after the MP, you get a small team battery. The scaling is not massive, it's only from 10 to 20% depending on your OC level, but in my opinion, it's a very nice OC effect to have. Now, couple this with another thing she can do, because she still has the 20% team battery right here. While she might still not herself, even with this, be the best farmer, at least now she can kind of slot into a different kind of farming comp with, let's say, like with MPs, because she already gives you, with this on base, your team would get 30%. Granted, you open with her, and you definitely want to open with her because her damage is most likely the smallest in your team anyway. So there are ways to make more use out of her, for sure. And her own turn 1 damage with this is also going to be way more consistent. But if you're interested about the looping numbers, you know, my good friend Jord obviously updated the form to include Helena, Summer as well. So let's take a loop. Now, she actually has 2 options. I didn't believe it first, but she can actually go from 0 with just double Castoria with the Black Rail option. Without Black Rail, you're looking at some sad numbers though. Sad. Just don't, unless you have like MP5, Grailed, Gold Foes and everything, just forget about this option. Just straight up forget about, you know, not running Black Rail. But if you do have the option of Black Rail, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. I mean, this is counting a level 100 Black Rail here, which adds a lot of damage, but it's still not terrible, all things considered. You can kind of make it work, I suppose. But, yeah. Oh yeah, there's still a comment here as well, which says... oh, I guess it's not confirmed yet if she can do it. Which, honestly, I have a feeling she might not be able to do it. So, this is still early on because we haven't really labbed her too much, or Jord hasn't. But if she can do it, which I'm still not sure if she can, she's an okay option, but not a great option. I still feel like her best case would be in some kind of challenge quests, or with a different kind of you know, farming setup like I mentioned earlier, which maybe includes a triple MP setup from not just herself, but her going first, and then another 2 of your, 1 or 2 of your other DPSs go after her. But hey, this was much needed at least. Now, again, we'll go back to the Archer tier list here. So yeah, she was just, this may have been a bit too harsh, but it's not like you ever really had big reasons to bring her. I think she does deserve a big step up from here, though. Probably at least here. Maybe I could even see a B, to be honest now. It's probably one of these two, because this was kind of harsh to begin with. Like, she's definitely not useless at all anymore. Which is good. You don't want someone to be, like, borderline useless. We might just give Nobu company, I agree, to be honest. If she can do the Black Rail looping from 0, obviously, I think this is kind of fair. But again, we don't really have proper confirmation yet. This is still so early on. But yeah, I'll just play it safe and place her here, I think. But hey, much needed buff. A very much needed buff. So good job, Lasagna, giving actually a buff that is well deserved and needed. So let's keep it up. Alright, and then the final one. You thought we were done with Yuri Pirates? No, 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 no. The OG Rider variant also got a buff. So, you know, they're not the most liked by the community, but hey, they're still getting a steady amount of buffs over the years. So clearly, DW, Lasagna, they still care about them, which is kind of cool because, you know, again, they're not very popular from what I've noticed. So again, it's a very simple buff, much like their summer counterpart. They buffed their critical skills, so let's just take a look at what happened here. We have OG Ryder, Anne, and Mary here. First skill has already been buffed, and it's actually a very cool buff. I believe this was an anniversary buff last year. Not gonna get into this too much, but again, this was a cool buff. And now the second skill, it used to be a 1-turn, big amount of crit damage, 100% on a 5-turn cooldown. But again, nowadays, this would be still kind of weak in my opinion, but let's see what happens now. So much like the summer version, it's a 1 added effect, but instead of a 30% battery, they get a 25, up to 25 star bomb. Now, do I think this skill is amazing now? Maybe not. Do I think it's good? Worthy of a modern status? I would say so for a very old permanent 4-star. I do think this skill is pretty okay now. And what makes it even better, obviously, is that their kit is literally full of, like, crit synergy to begin with. So being able to enable crits themselves is great. And also, another thing to keep in mind is that, obviously, they're a Rider class CERN, right? And in case you've been living on a rock, a Rider class has, like, the highest base absorb of all the classes. Goddamn, the timing with the dog and everything, this always happens. So even a small amount of stars, which this is not, this is a good amount of stars, even a small amount would help quite a bit, because, you know, they're most likely gonna get the stars anyway, so keep that in mind. So a star bomb is a bit better for a rider because of that, for sure. Love the dog. Now, the rider tier list, they were sitting at a C+. Honestly, they do deserve a bump as well, to be honest. I think it's a great buff again. Not a huge buff, but a great buff. So, let's see. Where are some of their peers? I guess there's not that many 4-star single target rider DPSs, huh? I guess. I could maybe even see a B+, but there's not a whole lot of comparison here, to be honest. Maybe a B is just fair, honestly. I do think they're above average now, for sure. You can absolutely make them work. Maybe still not amazing, but man, these buffs over the years have certainly made them way more usable, right? So I think a B is very much deserved after this buff. Whew, wow, that was a doozy. I don't even know how long this video will be. It's like even the stream portion was long, and I'll obviously edit this down when it's a video, but yeah, not every day you get 5 buffs released at once, so this is a lot to take in, and obviously a lot of labbing needs to be done anyway. But hey, 5 great buffs, some a bit more impactful than others, but I still think all of the buffs make sense, and that's the most important part. I still hate Lasagna for what they did with the Sigurd buff. It was kind of weird, but otherwise we've been seeing some really great buffs. So hey, again, they get my clap for this. Very good. Love it. Especially I'm happy for Altera. She was kind of, you know, didn't have a good spot, so now she has a good role. And with that, I'll end this video, I guess. So if you enjoyed this, please do me a solid, press the like button and subscribe for more to not miss out on any future buff breakdowns or whatever other hopefully interesting videos I end up posting. And enjoy if you have any of these servants, I guess. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day and a peace out.